Dear friends, we live in the era of martial arts when the fans get to see huge and high-profile fights more frequently, where the best of the best collide with one another, but some champions still manage to stand out among them. Saúl Canelo Alvarez, an undisputed super middleweight champion, is currently the face of boxing and one of the highest paid fighters in the world. On his way, he beat and dethroned many champions, but even though he is already recognized and put in the same line with great boxers, he doesn't stop and continues to solidify his legacy. Very soon, on September the 30th, there will be a super fight between him and another undisputed champion from the lower weight class, Jermell Charlo, and a lot will be at stake for both fighters. Guys, today's video is dedicated to 5 fights when Canelo Alvarez shocked the world. Please don't forget about the likes, comments with forewords, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the new videos. Here we go! Number 5. Amir Khan. By 2016, Saúl Alvarez managed to fully recover from the only loss at that time to Floyd Mayweather and was on a streak of 4 victories, conquering the WBC middleweight championship in his last fight via unanimous decision win against another renowned fighter, Miguel Cotto. For the first title defense, the Mexicans team picked a British boxer of Pakistani descent, Amir Khan. At that moment, Khan was seen as a serious opponent, and for a reason. He was an Olympic silver medalist and a former world champion in 3 weight classes. He had knockout wins over Zab Judah, Paulie Malignaggi, but there was one issue. All of his achievements were inside the welterweight division, not higher. So for the big fight against Alvarez, he had to move up to the heavier weight class. Amir Khan has already lost in his career multiple times and even got knocked out on a couple of occasions. And now he had to go against a bigger, heavier hitting opponent. Nobody really gave him any chances. However, the British boxer had his own strong traits. He has great footwork and also possesses an incredible hand speed. Even the promoter of Alvarez, Oscar De La Hoya, tried to stir up the intrigue for this fight.
Look, Manny Pacquiao didn't want to fight him. Floyd Mayweather didn't want to fight Amir Khan. So now he's fighting the biggest superstar now in boxing today, in Canelo Alvarez, and it's very well deserved because Amir has the pedigree to go out there and put on a great show.
During the interview with the fighters, when there were a few days left until the bout, the guys stated that they were ready for the fight and confident in whose hand was going to be raised on that night.
Do you think you can knock him out?
A knockout is unpredictable. I'm going to prepare for the 12 rounds. And whatever happens during the fight, I'm ready for whatever.
Anything you want to tell Canelo?
I mean, I'm going to be ready for the fight. I know people are saying that, you know, I'm not big enough, I'm not strong enough, but you know, we will shock the world come May 7th, and I'm going into this fight because I believe in myself.
Overall, it happened exactly how many expected. The Brit was better on the feet and lightning fast with his attacks, due to which he outstruck Alvarez in the beginning rounds. He had enough reaction to evade the counters of the favorite and fully dictate his terms in the ring. However, it's not that simple if there is a focused and dangerous opponent in front of you who is ready to rip your head off. Saúl needed a couple of rounds to adjust to his vis-a-vis actions. Khan's shots did not really bother the Mexican, as the consequences of such efficiency happened to be worse for himself. He simply gassed out and began to slow down, while Canelo was turning up and preparing a surprise for his opponent. Right straight, boom! Alvarez connects his punch right on the chin and Amir Khan gets knocked out cold. The Brit couldn't recover for a long time, scaring everybody in the arena, but when he finally did, the defeated fighter was transported from the ring on the stretcher. And the outcome of the fight delivered by Saúl was recognized as the best knockout of 2016.
Tricky style.
Shot landed by the Mexican fighter, and it is over. A one shot from Canelo Alvarez dropped Amir Khan.
Number 4. Daniel Jacobs. After 2 exciting and big fights with Gennady Golovkin, which we will talk about later, the star of Saúl Álvarez began to shine brighter. Riding this wave, a 28-year-old champion signed a deal with DAZN streaming service for a huge amount of money, namely guaranteed $365 million for 11 fights. Not waiting for too long, Álvarez decided to move to the super middleweight division, where he conquered the WBA title, for which he needed only 3 rounds and a couple of precise shots. However, despite moving up, the Mexican star didn't relinquish his title in the middleweight division, which meant an imminent defense in the unification bout against the IBF champion Daniel Jacobs. Here's what a famous boxing coach, Teddy Atlas, has to say about this fight.
And now he's in there with Canelo, like I said, a full-fledged middleweight who's pretty slick, who knows how to box. At least you're going to get something competitive, or at least you think you will. And that's good. That's good for the fans, especially when you're highlighting the fact that Canelo's got this historic deal of money that he's getting paid. Again, you want to see him in there with somebody.
Daniel was confident in himself, and he was given the chance for a reason.
What will take the win is simply me just being the best version of myself. I have every attribute to be victorious. I mean, just my physical advantages in itself can win me the fight. But I think I have now the mental capacity. I'm in my prime now, too. I think I'm the only fighter that Canelo has faced other than since Floyd Mayweather to been in his prime, to be at an all-time high now. So for me, I'm super confident, but I'm going in there with the ability as well. So I do think that I'll be victorious by just being the best version of me and displaying great skills that I have naturally.
The tension was growing by every day of the incoming fight, and though both guys were respectful towards each other prior to that moment, the peak happened to be the final stare down at the ceremonial weigh-ins, where fighters decided not to wait for the official fight and figure out who is better right there. Despite the statements of many analysts who argued that this fight would end in a finish, we witnessed an exciting 12-round match between two champions whose fight went the full distance, where, though not with issues, Canelo earned a deserved victory via unanimous decision. His pressure and work to different levels did not let his opponent use his advantages in size. We might mention that though Daniel threw 50% more strikes, he was a lot worse in terms of precision than Canelo, who managed to land 40% of his shots against the American's 20. In the end, for the Mexican, it happened to be another valuable scalp on the list of defeated opponents and another belt shining on his shoulder. Number 3. Sergey Kovalev. In 2019, after another victory in the middleweight over Daniel Jacobs, Saúl Álvarez realized that there aren't really any opponents left for him to fight, and it raised the question, what's next for Canelo? Very different boxers were seen as potential opponents for the Mexican. There were talks about the third fight with Golovkin, another unification bout with Andrade, name of Callum Smith got in the mix as well, whom Álvarez ultimately faced at a further stage of his career. But Saúl's sights stopped on the WBO light heavyweight champion, Sergey Kovalev. Not only was it the biggest fight that could be done at the moment, but also the hardest challenge for the Mexican boxer, as he was supposed to move up 2 weight classes to contest the championship of the Crusher. I'm very motivated here. It's an honor to me to share the ring with a fighter like Kovalev, whom I met in 2012. He used to be a 4 to 6 round fighter, and now we're about to share the ring and make history here. I know it's going to be the most difficult fight in my career. On that day, I will put all of myself in the ring and we can scream Viva Mexico. Despite a noticeable difference in size, the contender was going into the fight as a big favorite, while the odds for the champion were 4 times higher. Many fighters and boxers saw Canelo's advantage, however, everybody could admit that this rivalry was intriguing.
I'm really thinks though that this is a very big test for me in my boxing career, because this is one of the best fighter in the world in boxing right now, and I'm happy and I'm sorry for my English, but I am excited, really.
Day of the fight, on November the 2nd at MGM Grand Arena in Las Vegas, Sergey Kovalev had his title defense against the biggest boxing star of that time. In this fight, Canelo was as cool and collected as never before. Both boxers did not force things to happen, and while Sergey slowly stalked his vis-a-vis, throwing light jabs, Saúl did not rush and was methodically dismantling his opponent, answering with quick shots, though he didn't throw them as frequently as he could. Sergey only responded with light combinations, scared of getting hit, and it worked for some time. The fight was closer in the scorecards than many people expected, but that couldn't keep on going forever. Strength began to abandon the Russian boxer, and he started to slow down and eat more and more shots with every round. An inevitable outcome caught up to Kovalev in the 11th round. With less than a minute left in the round, the crusher misses the left hook of Álvarez that wobbled him, and as he didn't have much time to recover, Canelo put the final nail in the coffin by landing the right straight precisely on the chin, after which Sergey fell on the canvas. Thus, Saúl Álvarez won this fight via knockout, becoming the light heavyweight champion and once again solidifying the opinion that he is the greatest modern boxer.
Canelo right even having to move his head because Kovalev's not even committing to the
There it is. Kovalev's hurt. Kovalev's down. Kovalev's out. It's over. That fast. There's fifth gear. Canelo is the light heavyweight champion of the world.
Number 2. Caleb Plant. It's hard to say when Saúl reached the peak of the popularity that he is at till this day. After a big victory in the light heavyweight division, he vacated the championship and went down in the super middleweight division with only one intention: 1 year. He gave himself 1 year to become the undisputed world champion in this weight class. As he ran over the entire division like a tornado, beating everybody who held the belts, he complemented his collection of scalps with undefeated Callum Smith, snatching his WBA title and conquering the vacant WBC title, which was also on the line. Defending his championship, he knocked out the Turkish boxer Avni Yildirim in the 3rd round, after which he stopped Billy Joe Saunders and took his 0 from the record on top of the WBO championship. Álvarez needed less than half a year to become the champion of the world in 3 major boxing organizations, but it wasn't enough. The only missing piece of the puzzle for a complete picture was the IBF belt, which at that time was held by Caleb Plant, who was little known to the general public. He was also an undefeated and vivid fighter who loved to play for the crowd, but behind a mask of such a tough guy was hidden a tragic story of a man who lost a lot and became the champion for the sake of his late daughter. Bookmakers' odds weren't really exciting. Once again, the Mexican was a huge favorite, despite the opponent's advantage in size, but there wasn't anybody for Canelo to fight, and Plant also wasn't a walk in the park.
That's honestly an exciting fight. One of the better middleweight fights that could be done right now. You know, Caleb Plant is one of those fighters that likes to hit and doesn't get hit because he's very defensive, very defensive but offensive minded. He's a very good fighter. Canelo, you know him. He throws bombs. He's breaking motherfuckers' jaws and shit, breaking orbital bones. You know, so let's hope that Caleb doesn't get hit. But it's a fun fight. I think every fight, it's a fan-friendly fight. I personally think Caleb could win this fight. You know,
how do you think Caleb? What do you think Caleb has to do to beat Canelo?
He's big enough to box him. He's smart enough to box him, and he's strong enough to take punches and give punches with Canelo. You know, don't get me wrong. Canelo's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters I've ever seen. You know, he's after he lost to Mayweather, he changed his whole game plan. He has great defense. His offense comes right after his defense, so it should be a great fight. But you know, the young buck Caleb Plant out there, he's hungry, so I got Caleb coming in for the win.
However, it wasn't the fight that was supposed to be, based on a mutual respect between the athletes, which could be seen at the press conference where Caleb tried to get under his opponent's skin.
And you should have seen how silly your faces look, and I mean a lot of you boxing writers, everybody who's going to be seeing this on YouTube and social media. You remember what you said Jose Uzcategui was going to do to me? You said he was going to dog walk me. And what happened? He got his dog walked. And he got set on his twice. So Miguel Cotto's brother can make you do the chicken dance, but I can't? Yeah, okay. So mark my words, November 6th, you will hear the words, and the new undisputed super middleweight. The only difference is right after that, you'll hear the words, and still undefeated. Mark my words. That's funny? You think that's funny?
A little bit.
Yeah? Well, keep laughing. You keep laughing. Because you know when you're going to find out? Real
Don't say
and you know find out the same everybody else found out. And you know when that was? You know when they found out? When it was too late. That's when they found out. And that's exactly when you're going to find out. Mark my words. And you a bitch too. You know the only difference between you and him is he's a fat bitch and you a bitch. What the fuck you going to do? Fuck you. And you a drug cheat. And you a drug cheat. So tell me something. Tell me something. Oscar Valdez can pop positive for something and not get suspended for 6 months, but he can pop positive for something and get suspended for 6 months. But somehow
don't make excuses before the
You're
fight.
A cheater.
Don't make
You're
excuses before the fight.
Trial. You got suspended for 6 months. You're a
Say
cheater.
whatever you say. See you November 6th.
But the passion didn't go away. Right after the press conference, fighters were put together where they had a conversation. Due to a language barrier, Canelo misunderstood his opponent's words, interpreting them as an insult to his mother, which he couldn't let slip unpunished. Canelo pushed Plant, for which he tried to slap his future opponent. Fighters began to brawl right at the press conference, but luckily it settled down, they got separated, and the only one who got hurt was Plant. He got a cut during the scrap. But maybe the American achieved his goal in getting into the opponent's head, as we have never seen Alvarez losing his cool.
Do you feel like you may have learned something about him already from that exchange?
No, nothing. He's a very insecure person. So you can see in his body language. So that's all I take.
Do you think that maybe he lost some confidence from that
Yeah,
exchange?
he lost already.
How do you think? Why do you think that?
In his mind. He lost already because he think different. He's gonna come in the fight, try to push me, punish me, but he's in a danger place.
The conference boosted the public's interest in this rivalry, and on the fight day, the whole arena was thundering in anticipation for the main event. Millions of people behind the screens had only one question: can Saúl Álvarez become the undisputed champion of the world today? The fight started, and it was hard to tell which boxer was better. Álvarez almost didn't throw and only pressed Plant in his usual manner, trying to cut the angles and catch him making mistakes, while the American was shooting with light jabs, staying quick on his feet. After the first round, Plant got comfortable and began to attack more frequently, outstriking the Mexican and winning rounds. But Álvarez still looked flashier, putting power in every shot, which made an impression on him having an advantage. It continued till the middle of the bout. Plant was winning the fight, and Canelo's corner didn't have a hint of panic, as if everything was going according to plan. And they weren't wrong. A boxing star pushed the pace, showing their signature defense with a head movement. He was methodically beating the American, who for some reason was covering in front of his opponent and collecting many shots, though with a block, but still, Plant resembled a shell of himself compared to the start of the fight. In the 9th round, the fire inside the American broke out once again, and he worked in that round to the limit of his abilities. But there was a formidable opponent in front of him, and in the 10th, Canelo put everything back in its place, while in the 11th one, he put an exclamation mark on their rivalry. Álvarez pressed its opponent to the ropes, after which he knocked the champion down bad with a short punch. Courageous and fully committed Plant found a strength within himself to stand up, but it was clear that he was hurt and has not recovered yet. While viewers at the stadium, behind the TV and smartphone screens, wherever, could clearly see that Canelo felt that with every fiber of his body. He immediately turned on to the max and easily finished a stunned opponent, and the American, who left all of himself in the ring, went down for good. Saúl Canelo Álvarez has done it. He became the first boxer who conquered all of the super middleweight belts, and he needed only 1 year to do so. He cleaned out the division, beat the best guys, and became the 6th boxer in history who collected all titles in the era of 4 belts.
Canelo looking for the finish. Canelo looking to finish off Caleb Plant, and down goes Plant, and this one is over. And the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, Saúl Canelo Alvarez, as he finishes off Caleb Plant with a highlight reel knockout victory. But man.
Number 1. Gennady Golovkin. Every great boxer has a certain opponent, the rivalry with whom characterizes them as a true fighter and a champion. It's impossible to remember the best fight of the Mexican star without mentioning amazing scraps against Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. At the moment of their first bout, both fighters were top 5 boxers regardless of the weight class, and later both of them would go on to be at the top of that rating. But in 2017, the rivalry of Canelo and Golovkin flurried all the boxing fans. Two elite level fighters with a similar anthropometry, and in their prime, odds and predictions for that fight were literally all over the place. It's one of these rare cases when Alvarez wasn't seen as a huge favorite prior to the fight, but an underdog. At that moment, Gennady Golovkin was seen as an uncrushable and terribly powerful opponent. Many began to think that the Mexican simply avoided him, but the historic match was meant to happen. It motivates me that the fans demanded this fight, and they're getting the fight that they wanted. And it's going to be an exciting fight, and you'll be able to experience that on September the 16th. Both fans and experts had different opinions, and only the fight could put the speculations to rest. First fight. The Kazakh was in a role of a champion, holding belts in all 4 organizations. He was on a record of 37-0 with 34 finishes. Golovkin and Alvarez faced each other in the first fight in Las Vegas, which fully justified the fans' expectations as both boxers gave their all in this fight, putting on uncompromising exchanges. Triple G took the initiative in his hand from the very beginning and pressured the Mexican, who fine-tuned his footwork for that fight, surprising the champion. Gennady was landing jabs, testing the waters for power attacks, then exploding and throwing them. As for Canelo, in the first fight he preferred to work as a second number and catching his opponent on mistakes, punishing him and counterattack. The fight was close and incredibly exciting. After the bell, all the fans held their breath in anticipation of the result, which left nobody indifferent. One judge scored a draw 114-114. The second one gave the fight to Golovkin with a slight edge of 115-113, and Adelaide Bird goes down in boxing history with an atrocious 118-110 scorecard for Alvarez, which makes it a split draw. $27 million worth of tickets was sold for this fight on top of 1.3 million PPVs, which in combination with a controversial decision guaranteed the second fight. The fans simply went crazy and began to continuously argue whether this fight was a robbery or the athletes were evenly matched. One thing was clear, this fight approved its status. That's what Golovkin said at the post-fight press conference.
This is terrible for sport, for boxing. You know, I'm a champion. This is biggest fight for boxing. You know, if these judges, you know, like today, this is terrible. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The rematch took place a year after and was a no less anticipated rivalry by the fans. The hate between boxers grew bigger. They didn't hold their statements back, which made the rematch even more exciting.
Look, you all know me. I'm gonna fight him anywhere. I'm not afraid of nobody, and I've shown that. The first time they were saying he's gonna knock me out and I wouldn't fight him. And look, here we are again. There's a saying in Mexico, a parrot's green anywhere he goes. I'm not afraid of him. I'm gonna knock him out.
Both boxers made corrections and approached the second fight in a different way. Golovkin began to move a lot more and land more precisely, while Canelo restrained his temper, began to wait, and countered the Kazakh when he was getting out of position. The difference was in the second half of the clash, as while in the first bout Gennady was pushing the pace after the middle of the fight, this time Canelo managed his energy more efficiently and the clash started to even out. He couldn't run over the Mexican with jabs as well as stunning him, so the second time around, the outcome of the fight got to the hands of the judges again. The fight happened to be even closer and more competitive. However, this time the winner was identified. Saúl Canelo Alvarez won in the rematch and became the new middleweight champion. It wasn't the end of their story. 4 years later, Alvarez and Golovkin met once again in the final bout, where in another close fight, Canelo won by a decision and put this huge and significant rivalry to rest. People can have different opinions on Saúl Álvarez. Some admire him, others think that he is a project of brilliant managers. But for today, his fights and decisions show that he is really good. He moves up in weight classes, accepts challenges, fights and leaves all of himself in the ring. And after so many matches, he doesn't stop and continues to solidify his legacy in the sport. What's next for him? It's hard to say, but he definitely wrote his name down in the history of boxing. Thanks for watching and your support. It's very important for our channel. Leave your opinion in the comments below. See you soon.